I'm going to move straight to our final speaker, Andrew Feinstein, who will be known to many of you. He's spoken at a good number of our rallies and events on Palestine, stood against Keir Starmer in the general election and ran an inspirational campaign, and has recently co-edited a book with Jeremy Corbyn called The Monstrous Anger of the Guns, How the Arms Trade is Ruining the World and What We Can Do About It. Please welcome Andrew.
Thank you very much, and as always, thank you to Stop the War for the invitation. I know it's not the direct topic of this session, but on my way here, I got the news from a friend of mine, Ahmed Al-Nawab, who is from Gaza, who lost 24 members of his family in an Israeli bombing. I got the message that he has lost 3 more of his family yesterday, murdered by the racist, genocidal Israeli state. And as we consider these issues in other parts of the world, let us never forget those who are suffering the most extreme consequences of what Andrew so eloquently described as the British imperialist state. Not just in Gaza and Lebanon, but in the Sudan, in the Congo, and still, albeit to a more limited extent now, thank goodness, in Yemen. And let us never forget who it is who benefits politically, but also materially from these conflicts. When, at the end of what many in the West call the Cold War, but those of us from the global South thought it was an extremely hot war, because it was our regions that were most affected by the human consequences of it. At the conclusion of this cold and hot war, as NATO started to expand ever eastwards, a committee was established called the Committee to Expand NATO. Their imagination never ceases to amaze. You'll be shocked to hear that it was a senior vice president of Lockheed Martin, the biggest weapons maker on the planet, that chaired the Committee to Expand NATO. And he spent 2 years traveling in Eastern Europe doing a very simple deal, where he would promise countries America's support for their accession to NATO if they bought all of the military equipment they needed to modernize in order to meet NATO's military materiel and defense spending requirements from Lockheed Martin. It is estimated that the initial expansion of NATO made Lockheed Martin an additional $23 billion in profits. For while the geopolitics are essential to understand Britain's role in the world, we should never forget the economics of the arms trade, the business of war, which primarily advantages corporate executives in the arms companies, the lawyers and auditors and management consultants and other intermediaries who feed off them, and of course, our political parties and senior politicians, who also benefit both politically and materially. But to be able to do this for the arms trade, which is the most corrupt of all trades in the world, to be able to continue to provide the the financial oil of our political systems in the so-called West. We need conflict. We need enemies. I often mention that the government of the United States of America employs more people to run one aircraft carrier than it has diplomats across the entire world. And today the United States of America has 12 aircraft carriers. That gives you some indication of their great commitment to diplomacy and peace. And let us never forget the opportunity cost of conflict and war. Not just the despoiling of the natural environment, the forced moving of people who haven't paid the ultimate price for these imperial adventures. But here at home, when we see a budget presented by my shameful constituency MP with a £3 billion increase for defence and a blank cheque in addition to that for anything that Ukraine needs, while at the same time putting a cap on subsidization of public transport, scrapping the winter fuel allowance, refusing to scrap the two-child benefit cap, in a country that has more billionaires than at any time in our history, while more families need food banks to feed themselves than at any time since the end of the Second World War. But this is not just a disease infecting the United Kingdom. Jenny made mention of AUKUS, this absurd security agreement between Australia, the United Kingdom, and the United States of America, where at the moment the aircraft carrier, the Queen Elizabeth II, is patrolling the waters off Australia, a country that has recently announced a $50 billion increase in defense spending over the next decade. But let's actually understand the absurdity of this. Why is Australia ramping up? It's not just for the corruption that is flowing into its political and corporate systems. It's supposedly to be a part of this Western alliance to threaten China, to threaten war with China, because that's what the United States want. But China is Australia's largest trading partner. So is Australia really prepared to destroy its economy to fulfill the wishes of whichever of Andrew described as the normals and or crazies occupies the Oval Office? This is what I describe as the madness of the moment, where war is peace, escalation is de-escalation, and racist, thuggish football hooligans are described by our political leaders as victims of a pogrom. I don't think my own MP knows what a pogrom is. But my father's family, who had to flee Tsarist Russia, certainly do. And to describe the repulsive behavior of racist, genocidal Israelis as equating to what happened
to millions of Jews?